Hello, everyone. My name is Sal Matos. Good morning. I hope you're all doing well. Thank you all so much for joining this webinar. It's actually a bit of a breath of fresh air, I'm sure, for a lot of people. I know for me, working from home, it can get a little claustrophobic. So even virtually, it's nice to get to kind of shake things up and do something like this. Um, Today, I'm going to go through a presentation on sort of how to respond as a brand during COVID-19. And then we're going to talk a little bit about some planning that you can do with our Twitter ads products. But we're not going to get started just yet. I'm going to give another minute um, for people to sort of settle in. And while I do that, I'm just going to start sharing my screen so that we can go through some slides together. All right. All right. So while we wait for everyone to join us, I would love to know what everyone is drinking this morning. So if you want to, go ahead and take your handy cell phone. I'm sure it's right there. Just take out the camera, and all you have to do is aim it at the QR code. And then it'll actually take you to a Twitter business poll where you can uh, vote on coffee, tea, water, or something else. I know right now water seems to be the big winner. I'm a big fan of that myself. But why don't we just take one more minute for you guys to all like participate in the poll. And then while we're waiting, I just want to remind everyone, you'll probably hear this from me 10, 20 times throughout, so I apologize in advance for being a broken record. But if there are any questions that you have that aren't covered today, or if you just want to reach out and talk to someone, just know that me and my whole team are here and always available at advertiserhelp@twitter.com. That goes straight to my colleagues who, during normal time, sit right next to me, and we'll make sure to get back to you as soon as we can. Right. Let's get started. Um, All right. Well, everyone else continues the poll. I see some more results coming in, which is awesome. Maybe we'll revisit it at the end. But while we're going through this presentation today, just a couple things to keep in mind. We're going to go through probably a lot of information, so it is kind of high level. So I'm sure you're going to have some more kind of in the weeds questions or things that are more specific to you or to your clients. If that comes up, please, please, please send them our way. Actually, if you from within BlueJeans on the sidebar, there's a little Q&A button right on the side of the screen in the side panel. If you just want to click there throughout the presentation, and you can submit your questions directly, just type them in. My teammates are actually going to be kind of taking those, consolidating them, and making sure that I can see them all. And then at the end, we're going to save like 10, 15 minutes, depending on how much time we need to kind of go through all of your questions. So we'll make sure to get to them at the end. But throughout, please feel free to just submit as many questions as you like, and we'll make sure to get back to them. And as always, you can always reach out to us at advertiserhelp@twitter.com for anything that maybe you forget or maybe you don't want to ask here. It's maybe a little too specific. You can always reach out to us in that way too. So I already introduced myself, but just to reiterate for everyone who just joined, my name is Sal Matos. I am an account manager for advertisers at Twitter. I've been with Twitter for just about 3 years now, which is kind of crazy to think about. I work with advertisers primarily in the self-serve business, and but that can be a little bit misleading. I work with brands of all sizes, all verticals, big major tech and gaming brands to grocery chains, retail brands to, personal accounts who are just trying to drum up some attention on content that they're producing. So I've worked with a wide array of different advertisers, and so I think I can definitely answer your questions regardless of the type of client or the type of advertiser that you are. Everything that we cover today is going to, I think, be relevant and hopefully speak to what you need to do. So again, to reiterate today's agenda, we're going to start off by talking about how to connect with your audience during times of crisis. That'll be kind of the first chunk, and then from there we'll talk a little bit more about how you can start thinking ahead to hopefully, when this crisis is over, or even right now, if you've got strategy for during the crisis, how you can sort of utilize some of our products, what those products are, and sort of what they make the most sense for. And then, as I mentioned at the end, we'll save some time for Q&A. So what's going on right now? It's the elephant in the room. We know that COVID-19 and coronavirus have sort of halted the world in its tracks. But it's important for us as brands, as advertisers, as companies to really be thinking about what are we as people, and putting that first. So first and foremost, when thinking about how should your brand be responding and communicating, this is not a marketing opportunity to capitalize on. We can't emphasize that enough. Um, there might be some temptation to think like, oh, everyone is, talking about COVID-19. Everyone is tweeting about COVID-19. How do we use that to sort of capitalize on? And that's not really the approach that you should be taking. What you should be thinking about is how are you using Twitter to share your brand voice and to participate in the conversation as opposed to trying to capitalize on it. So yeah, participation versus capitalization, I think, is a key way to think about this. To start off, we're going to start off with this tweet from Amanda Getz. Raise your hand if you've had to rethink an entire marketing calendar this week that took months to create. I imagine that many of you are raising your hands right now. I certainly have been, even on the partner side, working with a number of clients who had huge plans for the end of Q1, Q2, even as far as Q3 and Q4 that right now are kind of in flux. I know that I had, some big opportunities that were coming in and we were all excited to get them launched, and then everything just sort of went on pause. And so we're kind of in this kind of confusing state right now because, the state of the world is constantly changing and we don't know really what the timeline is yet. And so it's hard to plan. But there are a couple things that we can do while we're in this state of flux. And the first thing is to not go quiet. I think, one of the first instincts might be, this time of crisis, maybe we should just stop advertising. Maybe we should just, pull the plug entirely. And that's not actually true. In a poll, a recent poll, we found that only 8% of people feel that brands should stop advertising right now. And we're going to take a look at this tweet from Lou Pascalis, who's a senior VP of Bank of America and chairman of the North American Board of Directors at the Mobile Marketing Association. He said that this was a well-documented data form in our last economic downturn. Basically, what people found during the last economic downturn was that it's more important than ever for brands to be actively communicating, maybe even more than they normally do, to sort of maintain public trust, to show empathy, and to show that you care about your customers more than anything. On this next slide, you can just see some just hard data that supports this idea. Strong brands recovered 5 times faster following the financial crisis of 2008. So in the past 14 years, the biggest lesson that we've learned is that by being very active, by pushing your brand forward, even during those kind of hard couple of years, back in 2008, 2009, it helped in the long run because it helped build trust and it helped maintain your presence in the larger conversation that was happening in the world. So what are people looking for you to do during this time? If we're saying that you should stay advertising, you should stay in the conversation, how? Like, what are you going to be talking about? So 45% of people really want to hear unity and uplifting messages. 45% of people, they just want straight facts. They want to know information about what's happening in the world, what's going on with this virus, and what is your company doing. 40% want tips on sort of adjusting to this new normal. I mean, here we are in this virtual webinar. You're all working from home, I'm sure. And so how do we do that? How do we adjust to staying at home, working from home, social distancing? These are not things that really most of our society is built for. And so now we have to adjust not only as individuals, but as larger companies. And then last, we have 43% of people want to know what a brand is doing for not only its customers, but really important is its employees in response to the COVID-19 situation. I think one consistent thing that you'll see just sort of browsing around on Twitter is that people right now are really scared about what's to come. And one thing that a lot of brands are doing is making it clear we are here for our employees, we're showing up for the people who work for us, and we're putting people first. Um, and that tends to gain a really positive response, as you can imagine. So, whatever it is you're doing as a brand, people just want to know. They want to have that information clear and upfront. And you can use Twitter to do that. And so, if you want some ideas of some examples of what brands are doing, again, go ahead and use your QR scanner to read that QR code up in the corner. But I want to take a look at 3 examples that we thought were just really good starting points. The first one is from Balance App, which I actually am a fan of personally. Um, and they tweeted, "These are challenging times, and we'd like to do what we can to help. This month, we're offering a completely free 1-year subscription to Balance to anyone who wants it." Now, I think this is really exciting, and we'll kind of touch on this a little bit later. But what is really exciting about this is that they know that they have a product that is really suited to right now. That would be really actually really beneficial for a lot of people who are staying at home and need to kind of deal with the stress of their lives right now because it's kind of an unusual situation. And so by offering this free subscription and offering their services to a wide array of new people, they're saying, we want to participate in helping everyone out, and we're going to do it like this. So an example from right here in home was from our policy team, who are, I have to give them a shout out. They are working so hard right now to make sure that our COVID-19 policy is, alive and adapting as, things change every day. But today, this tweet is just an example of how they are just sharing just straight up facts, information about COVID-19, looking at organizations such as World Health Organization, looking at hashtags, and just sort of bringing that information and consolidating it that it's easily digestible and easy to find. And then last but not least, we have a great tweet from Tinder. Social distancing doesn't have to mean disconnecting, and they've decided to turn on Tinder Passport, which allows you to communicate with people all around the world. Normally, Tinder sort of limits you to your local geography. And I think sort of connecting to what their product is, the core of the product of Tinder is ultimately for people to make, personal connections. And right now, that is harder to do than ever. And so they're expanding what the capabilities of their product are for everyone who's using it so that you can make as many connections as far as possible as you'd like. And, just have someone to talk to while you're all staying at home. So I think that's a great example of something that we're going to touch on a little bit later in the presentation. So 65% of over 12,000 respondents across 12 countries said that a brand's response during the crisis will have a huge impact on the likelihood of them buying their product or just participating with that brand and supporting that brand in the future. That's a huge number. That's a majority of your customers when you really think about it. And I think it just shows that right now people are looking for some sense of normalcy. And so people aren't looking for you to go away. They just want you to adapt and respond in an appropriate way. So what is appropriate right now? Consumers want brands that stand for something. Once again, we have a great QR code here with some more examples from brands for you to look at. We have some great advertisers such as Ford, Crunch, so some really big brands across a wide variety of spaces for you to check out. And so, as I was mentioning earlier with the Tinder examples and the balance examples, um, you need to identify your place in this moment by identifying the three P's. So we already kind of talked about one, which is the product, but number one is principles. What guides your brand? What is something that your brand stands for or cares about? What's the message? Number two is products. What is it that you make? What is it that you do? What do you provide to your customers? And this ultimately fuels your brand and should be reflective of your principles. And then number three is your pledge. And this is more specific to right now, but can really be adapted to any situation and at any time. What can you do with your products and with those guiding principles to help people right now with the very specific situation that's going on? So let's take a look at some examples. Um, Disney Plus is a huge brand. I'm sure many of you, like me, are eating up all of the old content. I've been watching that. So Raven, The Mandalorian, to name a few. Um, but this is a really good example, a simple example that it might be deceptively simple, but we can break down why this fits the three Ps and why this works right now. So for Disney Plus and sort of Disney as a larger organization, their principle is to entertain and inspire people through storytelling. I mean, that's evident throughout all of the products that they create. For instance, Frozen 2. And Frozen is one of the most popular series that Disney has. I know I personally love it. I sing the songs all the time. And now their pledge is to continue to entertain and inspire people with the storytelling in the form of Frozen as a product. And they're pledging to support people right now by releasing Frozen 2 earlier than they anticipated on digital and streaming. This is just one example. Now, obviously, the tweet itself is fairly simple. Frozen 2 is now streaming on Disney Plus. But that's really thinking about tone of voice, which gets us into best practices. So, number one, know your brand, understand the unique role that your brand plays in people's lives, and what you can do to help them right now. And look for opportunities to lead by example by doing the right thing. Going back to the Frozen example, being thoughtful about your tone of voice. You evolve your tone to reflect this new context, and understand that it's not always one size fits all in terms of tone. So to go back to the Frozen example, it was just straightforward Frozen 2 now streaming on Disney Plus. They didn't make it somber in light of COVID-19. We're putting out Frozen 2. And they didn't try to make light of it either. They were just straightforward. They said everything that they needed to say, and people can make that connection. Now, for other brands, it might be different. You might want to say, if you're talking about what are you doing for your employees right now, then yeah, you want to be more specific and say, in light of the ongoing pandemic, here's what we're doing, X, Y, Z things. And even humor can go a long way right now if it's appropriate. We're all looking for a little bit of levity, and I know I turn to Twitter for memes and humor all the time. I think Amazon Prime Video right now is a great example of they are just putting memes out there. So, and really just kind of connecting with what people are finding entertaining right now and sort of lifting their spirits. And then last, anticipate your changes in your customers' behavior. I think that this is really important because, as we've talked about, there's a lot that we don't know right now, timelines, whatever the case may be. The best thing that you can do is focus on what you can control and what we do know. And what we do know is that people are staying home right now. People are social distancing. And so you can kind of lean into that. You can start by one of the things we know, people are staying home. And so we've seen a shift in e-commerce. We've seen a boom in live streaming. We've seen a big boom in gaming. And so those are some areas where you can really lean into that. And then for other brands, you have to know that your consumers right now, your customers, it's going to be a bit of a different situation and you're going to have to be a little bit more strategic. Maybe you're a grocery brand, maybe you're a brick and mortar shop. Whatever the case may be, you're going to have to strategize to what your customers need right now, which is going to be different than what a streaming or a gaming company might be doing right now. So just a couple more quotes before we shift over to start talking about products. This is from Paul Pullman. The primary purpose of business is to serve society. Only then will shareholders prosper long term. I think this really just drives home the point of everything that we've been talking about. Um, it's kind of counterintuitive, I'm sure, for many businesses, but right now, profit is not the number one. It really should be focusing on people. It really should be focused on connection, and sometimes that might connect to profit, and sometimes it might not. And just being adaptable and knowing that this is not forever, and that you're going to have to change your strategy up for now is really important, and will benefit you ultimately when you focus on people, because the people will come back. And this is from Richard Edelman, chairman of Edelman. In a time of turmoil, people are turning to brands as islands of stability. Again, we're going back to that 8% stat. Only 8% of people think that brands should stop advertising. So really try to lean into that and make sure that you are an active part of society right now, that you're an active part of the community and the conversation that is happening, not just on Twitter, but everywhere else in the world as well. So to recap, people want to hear from you. But they want to hear from you specifically. They don't want cookie cutter answers. So identify what you as a brand are doing that's unique, and make sure to share that. But make sure to share it in a way that is respectful, and that is cognizant, and can read the room a little bit. So now we're going to start planning ahead. I know that for me, as I mentioned, a lot of my customers right now have sort of paused their campaigns, or we're sort of readjusting, and we've kind of gone back into the planning phase, which we were doing, a couple months ago. And so a lot of questions have come up about kind of in that planning area about what kind of products should we be thinking about, when we get further down the line? What are the ad formats? We're kind of starting back at square one in many ways. But I think now, while we're kind of in the world is kind of on pause, it's a great time to really go back to basics, and start thinking about those foundational elements so that when, we kind of get to the other side of this, we can just hit the ground running. So we're going to start off by talking about our core products, and then I'm going to talk about some newer offerings that we have that are a little bit more premium and a little more flashy. But we're going to start off with just those building blocks. So the number one is our promoted tweet. This is the sort of bread and butter of what Twitter does. Ultimately, every ad on Twitter is going to be a tweet. That's how we operate, and that's our product. It's very simple. You have your tweet copy, which can be up to 280 characters, though we do definitely recommend for an ad to consider going lower. Again, there are always going to be examples where you can kind of push one way or the other, exceptions to the rule. But we found that more often than not, it's in your best interest to keep your message short, sweet, clear, digestible, clear calls to action. If you're running video, make sure that you're operating with a sound off approach to make sure that your video is digestible by people who don't use audio while they're scrolling. And just make sure to include your brand logo in video as much as possible. Where are you going to use a promoted tweet? You can use a promoted tweet on every single one of our campaign objectives, with the exception of pre-roll video. But you should really be thinking about this when you want to drive awareness or when you want to drive engagement, because you'll be able to optimize towards that with your messaging. So on the subject of video, let's go ahead and take a minute to take another poll. If you want to pull out your QR scanners, I'm going to do it too. And then go ahead. We're going to open up this next poll. What is the sweet spot for best performing video on mobile on Twitter? So the options are 1 to 3 seconds, 6 to 15 seconds, 15 to 30, or 30 to 60. I'll give you a couple seconds to put in your answer. I just put in mine. And it looks like And it looks like the most of you are definitely on the ball with this. It's 6 to 15 seconds. So congratulations for you guys for knowing your stuff. Um, so you really want to think about tailoring your assets for a mobile feed. And what we have found in our research is that 6 to 15 seconds is the perfect length for a mobile video, whether it's pre-roll or not pre-roll. But especially when you're thinking about branding, where you're going to put your logo, you want to make sure that your logo, the actual product itself, make sure all of that is in the video within the first 3 to 6 seconds. And then in terms of length, 6 to 15. Video on pre-roll is skippable after 6 seconds, so it's really important to think about that. And anything after 15, unless you're pushing for kind of a longer narrative type of video, which can work, you really want to think about chopping it down because the way that people digest content on Twitter is by scrolling through their feed. When you're running video, one of the options that you can do is to run in-stream video ads or pre-roll, as we call it. It's also known as Amplify. It's got a bunch of names, but essentially what it is putting your video, running it in front of one of our trusted publishing partners as content. Now, this is a great opportunity for advertisers who have video assets that they want to run, but don't necessarily want to think about coming up with tweet copy. Don't want to think about what is their engagement strategy with replying to people, not replying to people. So it's a really light lift in terms of what you can do. I imagine you've got your video assets. Maybe you're running a TV spot or you're running it on Facebook or Google or Instagram. You can just go ahead, chop that down into a shorter unit, and then run it in front of a relevant publishing category. So that could be news, entertainment, whatever the case may be. Again, you want to adhere to our best practices, optimizing for sound off, making sure that your logo and your product are really present in the very beginning, and that's just short and focused. And you can actually, while you can target up to 2 different content categories, all of these publishers are brand safe, but what's even better than that is if there are any specific ones that you don't want to run against, you can actually exclude those specific handles as well to give you a little bit extra control over where your ads are going. And you target this the same way you would all of our other campaigns with a combination of geo-targeting, keywords, interests, conversations, whatever the case may be. Now, our pre-roll video can be made clickable and our promoted tweets can include website cards and URLs. But if you're trying to drive traffic to a website, our recommendation is to utilize our website cards and run them as a clicks or conversions campaign so that you can optimize by optimizing for clicks and paying for clicks. So you get the most bang for your buck. And rather than just putting a URL in your tweet copy, what you can do is use website cards to add in an image or a video as well as a headline, as you can see in this Bombas example. The great thing about this is that you can utilize your copy as well as your visual assets to drive traffic elsewhere. And if you're using video, with the video website card, actually when users click on their video, to expand it, the video will continue playing at the top of their screen. And then below it, your landing page will load without leaving the Twitter app. So it's all a really clean, nice native experience. So if you're trying to do something like generate leads or just purely driving sales, getting someone to sign up for something, any sort of post-click action, definitely think about using website cards and whenever possible, video website cards, just because video has a lot more stopping power and the product is really clean and intuitive. Next up, similar to a website card would be the app installs and engagement card. Obviously, this is specifically for if you're running a mobile app promotion campaign. So our map product right now, as we call it, you can run and optimize either for app installs or app re-engagements for people who already have your app installed and you want to announce a new feature or something like that. Again, you have sort of the same creative assets. You have your tweet copy up to 280 characters. You can run with an image or a video. And we've actually found that one by one video, a nice square, is really great for mobile app advertisers. And when users are scrolling through, they'll just see the card, and when they click on it, it'll actually just take them straight to the App Store or the Android store. To recap, our core products and sort of how you should be thinking about them. Promoted tweets. This is kind of a catch-all for all of the things that we've been talking about. It's sort of your first step. So that's going to be copy, media, and then all of our other ad units can kind of be layered on top of that. But you're really going to want to be thinking about running a promoted tweet by itself as an awareness or an engagement campaign when you're trying to get a message out into the world. In-stream video ads, obviously when you want to run video, and if you want to do kind of a lighter lift, you can use this to kind of take away some of the extra creative parts. Website cards, obviously when you want to drive traffic, this is going to be the product for you, or any kind of off-site post-click action. And then app installs speaks for itself when you're trying to drive app installs, or if you're wanting to do any kind of re-engagement with your users. So now I want to shift over to start talking about some of our newer products. The first one is an expansion of the promoted trend, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. If you aren't, what a promoted trend is you basically buy a trending topic. And in our Explore tab on mobile and just on the sidebar on desktop, you'll see the list of whatever the biggest conversations are. You actually get to buy a slot right there to make sure that your hashtag, your phrase, whatever the case may be, is visible right there. And now you can upgrade that for even more visibility with the Promoted Trend Spotlight. Now you can grab that top bar where we usually put an image or a video or a GIF, and it has a lot of stopping power. Usually there will be maybe a news headline or something like that, but you can actually buy that spot for a whole day in a given country. So everyone in that country for 24 hours will see your ad and see your graphic. Obviously, there's a lot of stopping power here. This is the closest product that we would have to, people always ask, how do we take over Twitter? What is the Twitter takeover? So if you think about maybe YouTube, they can kind of do those banner takeovers, news websites. They always kind of have those sidebars, things like that, where you really get to take over the site. This will be the closest thing to that, the most one-to-one of that kind of product. So when you're thinking about that as an advertiser, or if you're pitching this to clients, sort of think about it in those terms. The way it works is that every user in the country that you buy, the first 2 times that they go to the Explore tab, they're going to see your graphic along with your hashtag or phrase, as well as a description. So the get tickets now and see it on August 3rd. That's an additional bit of context that you get to add and customize to sort of explain what your ad is about. You can use it as a CTA. You can use it to be kind of mysterious, whatever you want. After they've already seen your graphic 2 times, the 3rd time on, when they go to this tab and they see the trending topics, your trend is just going to move down into the regular list of trending topics and pop right there. And then after they click on the hashtag or the graphic, what they see is actually a tweet from you. So all of those core products that we just talked about, promoted tweet, website cards, app cards, you can put all of those to have that be the post click. So you can actually use a promoted trend to help bolster all of those other core products that we were talking about, whether you're trying to drive clicks, get video views, whatever the case may be. And then last but not least, this is actually a really exciting product for a lot of my clients who are in the self-serve market, where we don't always have the resources to put together third-party studies, such as a Nielsen survey, but I know that that's something that a lot of people want, and it's really important to a lot of advertisers. So Twitter actually put together a first-party solution called Twitter Brand Surveys. What it is a first-party survey that we'll create 2 audiences. Your ads will serve to one audience, and then we'll create a control audience of people who aren't served your ad. And then we'll serve all of those people right in their feed a prompt just like this from Twitter surveys, um, asking them if they are aware of your brand, if they are aware of your competitors' brands, have they ever considered your brand before. All of the answers and questions are customizable from a preset list of templates. You just pick what questions you want, whether you're interested in ad recall, are you interested in brand awareness, and then you fill in the blanks. We set up the survey. You can have it run for up to 2 weeks, or I'm sorry, starting from 2 weeks all the way up to 12 weeks. So you can have it run a full quarter of content if you would like. And this is what the experience looks like for the users. And then once your survey is wrapped up and all of your campaigns are completed, your representative will get your results, and then we'll send you a deck and we'll walk through those results with you, and sort of let you know sort of what the raw data is, but also walk with you through what that means and how we can apply best practices based on what we're seeing. Can we do better with CTA? Can we do better with the video creative, etc. And now um, we're going to shift over to a Q&A. Again, to remind everyone kind of how this goes. If you have any questions at all that you haven't already submitted, on the right side panel, there should be a little Q&A button. You can go ahead and submit your questions there. And as a reminder, you can always reach out to us at advertiserhelp@twitter.com. All right, so I'm just going to start going through some of these questions that we have going right now. Again, continue to submit them, and my team will be surfacing them up to me. So just to start off, will we be receiving this deck to share with our team members? Yes. So we're actually planning to share this whole webinar recording with everyone who attended the webinar. So you will have access to all of this. All of the stuff that we've talked about today will be accessible to everyone who's in attendance right now. Can you send over any guidelines around coronavirus content for content marketers and publishers? Yes, we 100% can. We're going to emphasize, please reach out to advertiserhelp@twitter.com. And we'll be able to send you some materials that you can just have on file. And we'll also make sure to share with you a link to our policy page. As I mentioned, our policy is kind of ever living right now. So there are going to be changes sort of day to day in how we are enacting the policy, what the policy is. Right now, as just sort of a general coverage, we're prohibiting most paid promotion around COVID-19. So that'll be anything related to targeting terms related to COVID-19, promoting content, whether that's tweet copy, whether that's in the media asset or on your landing page. Any of those things cannot be, you cannot put money behind right now, with some exceptions being made for governments, some some organizations such as NGOs, World Health Organization, etc., as well as some pre-selected news orgs. But generally speaking, unless you happen to fall in one of those realms, we're probably not going to be allowing you to do any paid promotion at this time. Now, that being said, that policy only applies to paid content. So as long as you're still adhering to the rest of our Twitter policies, you can go ahead and share any of that information, all those strategies that we talked about at the top, organically. Moving on, we're looking at what is the best way to keep campaigns alive and spending for a long time? So I think this is a really great question that kind of gets it's a nice general question, and I think it's applicable to pretty much everyone who's watching right now. There's going to be sort of three levers that you're going to be wanting to think about when it comes to Twitter ads, that are kind of going to be the magic phrases that your rep is always going to kind of come to you with recommendations on, and that's targeting, bid, and creative. When you're thinking about targeting, we have a number of different targeting options available, ranging from sort of demographic things like geo-targeting, gender, age, device for our mobile app developers, and then also what we call audience features, and that'll be things like conversation topics, keywords, interests, follower lookalikes, etc. You can also upload tailored audiences or work with third-party partners to get sort of audience segments uploaded. My rule of thumb with Twitter targeting is always going to be broader is better. Obviously, you're going to have your very specific niche audiences that you're trying to reach. But you want to reach that specific audience in as broad a way as possible. And I know that kind of sounds kind of crazy, but this is where working with a rep, we do this all day long, sort of figuring out what are the best targeting setups to make sure that your campaigns will serve successfully and to the right people. So as much as possible, lean on your reps and lean on my team, and we'll be able to help you out with that. When it comes to bid, we always recommend, setting a higher bid is always going to help because ultimately we run on an auction system. So in an auction, the higher bid is going to help you out. But sometimes you might want to just put in an automatic bid, which is an option in our system, which will allow you more flexibility if you're okay with the cost sort of going up and down. If you're trying to really control cost, then you're really going to want to do a target cost or a maximum bid. But again, leaning higher when possible if you're not seeing results. And then last but not least, when it comes to creatives, some of the creative best practices we already touched on, but we always recommend using videos, even if you're running just a promoted tweet. Video has a lot of stopping power on the platform, and it's an area that we're really leaning into heavily as a company. If you're running a longer campaign, try to refresh your creative every couple of weeks, and try to keep 3 to 6 creatives in rotation if you can. If you're trying to drive traffic, make sure to have a really strong CTA that encourages people to click so that they don't just watch your great video and then scroll away. You really want to make sure to utilize that tweet copy to sort of like keep them in place. And when possible, especially if you're running like an awareness campaign or an engagement campaign, try different types of creative. Try running a video alongside an image, alongside a card, and sort of see what performs best with different combinations of creative and text. We have another question about COVID-19. How has Twitter usage changed since COVID, and have we seen increased usage? So this is actually a question that I know I've been getting from a lot of clients, so definitely very relevant right now. I think this one's come in a couple times. We've seen an increased number of people going to Twitter, definitely as a result of COVID-19. I think anecdotally, people are at home, people are looking for information, and Twitter is a place that people go to for information, but also to connect with people and sort of share kind of in the zeitgeist of what's going on right now. And so they're coming to find news about COVID-19 and to connect with people to talk about what's going on in the world. And so we've definitely seen an increased usage. But in terms of advertising, it's going to be more or less the same. I think just really trying to lean into the organic conversations that are happening. That's really what you're going to want to focus on. Next question is about in-stream. Are you able to do a combination of in-stream video and app installs? Yes, but you're going to want to run these as sort of separate campaigns. So you're going to want to create 2 campaigns, separate objectives, and then sort of combine those results to sort of think about it as like a full funnel approach. And what you can also do is utilize some of our in-house retargeting tools. You can actually retarget previous campaigns. So let's say you wanted to run an in-stream video ad before your app launches to sort of build up awareness. You can actually retarget those people within, I believe, 90 days, and then hit them with the actual app install later. So you can kind of do a multi-step approach there. Do we see more success with video ads or image ads? This is really going to depend on your goals, and there's always going to be exceptions to the rule. But we have definitely seen more higher video performance across multiple campaigns from multiple different accounts and verticals. Video is the moment. So if it is within your resources and it is an option for you, definitely lean into that. But there are going to be cases where an image is going to be just as successful, and sometimes a tweet that's just copy can be really successful for driving engagement or conversation. So it really depends on sort of what your broader goals are, but we would say broadly speaking, at a high level, that video does do really well. Um, oh, this is a great question that I get all the time, especially from new clients. What is the minimum required to advertise on Twitter? There is no minimum. We do not have a minimum for you to advertise on Twitter. You can always connect with us again at advertiserhelp@twitter.com. We can set up funding sources with you, or you can run on a credit card. And we're only ever going to bill you for what you actually serve. So let's say you open up a budget of $10,000, and you don't quite spend it all the way through. Don't worry, we're not gonna come chasing you down for the money that you didn't spend. We're really just wanting to make sure that our ads and our products are successful for you. And we're really going to charge you for what you use them for. Um, Next up, with video ads, will Twitter introduce automatic or manual added subtitles or captions? And what is our POV on adding caption text to the video? We highly, highly recommend adding captions to your videos. Again, we want to emphasize that sound off strategy for video is really important. And also, just from an accessibility front, having captions is going to help your ads reach a much larger audience, regardless of if they're using sound or not. What's nice is you can now upload your subtitle files directly into your ads account onto your videos. So we made that really easy for you. And if you want some more details on how to do that, again, connect with your rep or advertiser help app. Um, what geos are the Twitter brand surveys available in, and what languages are the preset lists of questions available in? I believe this product is available globally in any regions where Twitter is. We should be able to run one. But if you have questions about a specific region that might be you're not sure about or is in a gray area, please reach out to advertiserhelp@twitter.com, and we'll make sure to get those solid details. But in all of our major markets, for sure, it's available, and it should be available in most, if not all, markets that Twitter is available in. On the question, this question is about promoted trends. Can you geo-target a promoted trend? So this is a great question. I've actually run into this. I've worked with clients that are more regional, and so they had the budget to run a promoted trend and were really interested in the idea of the product. But ultimately, we didn't move forward because there is no geo-targeting with a promoted trend. When you buy a promoted trend, you buy it for the day in a single country. And so what that means is that every single user who logs in for that day in that country can see your promoted trend. And there's no way to sort of go granular below that. It is something that we've heard a lot. So it's definitely something that we're thinking about. But right now, there's no geo-targeting on promoted trends. We're going to start wrapping up in a little bit. I'll answer a couple more questions. And then any additional ones that don't get answered right now, let's just go ahead and reach out to advertiser help, and we can start answering your questions as soon as we're done here. So I'm just going to go through and see if there's a couple more that we want to highlight. We've already talked about the COVID-19 policy. Again, just sort of as a blanket to reiterate, COVID-19 is prohibited in all paid promotion right now, with the exception of certain specific pre-selected orgs. And if you want more details on that, please reach out to us. Um, And then, I think this will be a great question to wrap up on is, where can I find Twitter ads best practices and additional resources, kind of like the ones that we've been talking about today? Obviously, we didn't cover every product and every best practice and every strategy in the world today. This was kind of high level, kind of building blocks. To start off with, business.twitter.com, we call it BTC sometimes very lovingly. Our marketing team has put together some amazing resources on a wide array of every topic that you could think of. So that's business.twitter.com. Blogs, success stories, specs. I know media specs are something that people always want. So definitely check there first. And then you can also obviously reach out to advertiserhelp@twitter.com. Someone like me or one of my teammates will be assigned to you, and we'll make sure to give you kind of that one-to-one support. We also have a really wonderful podcast that is going out called Character Count. It's from the @Twitter business handle. You can find it in any podcast app that you're using. Joe Wadlington, who's on our marketing team, hosts, and he connects with advertising clients that are actual clients of ours, like actual advertisers who are running successful campaigns, both paid and organic strategy. And they just talk to each other about sort of what they're doing, how they're using the products, how they're thinking about the platform, how they're thinking about their digital strategy overall. There's some really great nuggets of information in there. So I highly, highly recommend, especially while we've got some time, just go ahead and check out Character Count, give it a listen. And then our team actually put together a really awesome marketing calendar that highlights, what are the major conversations and events that are taking place in the world, because if they're happening in the world, they're happening on Twitter and people are talking about them. And so reach out to us again at Advertiser Help, or if you already have a rep, reach out to that person. And we can share that marketing calendar with you and walk with you how to use it, how to be thinking about it. And we can use that to start to plan ahead for when we get through to the other side of this crazy situation that I know none of us want to be in right now. And we're all kind of hoping for the day when we'll be kind of back to normal. But until then, just know that my team is here, Twitter is here, and we're here to support you. So I'd like to thank everyone for attending this morning, taking some time out of your busy work from home schedules. Again, as always, please reach out to us, advertiserhelp@twitter.com. Thank you so much.